Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of Staffordshire County Council Cabinet today, Wednesday, the 21st of June 2023. First item on the agenda, do we have any apologies? Mr Bradbury.
Good morning, Leader. I'm not in receipt of any apologies for this morning's meeting.
Agenda item 2, declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? For the record, nobody is indicating. Item number 3, decision notice of the meeting held on the 17th of May 2023. Is it your wish that I sign those minutes off as a correct record of the meeting? Yes. That is so moved. Agenda item number 4 is the Leaders' Update. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the midst of Armed Forces Week, the annual celebration of our serving men and women and veterans, John, who make a huge contribution to the nation and our collective safety, of which my son is one. He's a serving soldier, a corporal in the Royal Lancers, currently on a course in Warminster, learning how to drive his tank better. Today the spotlight is on the role of reserves, and as I speak there is an event in the Shire Hall here in Stafford, in partnership with the Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce, to show businesses how they can support and benefit from reserves amongst their workforce. As a former member of the Armed Forces myself, I'm immensely proud of the County Council's role in championing our armed forces, and we are re-signing the Armed Forces Covenant this year and run a range of initiatives, for example, offering discount rates to veterans to rent space in our enterprise centres to help their transition to civilian life. Elsewhere, the sun was shining on Sunday morning as thousands of Ironman triathletes jumped into Chase Water to begin their 70.3-mile challenge across the stunning county. I was listed to do it, but didn't. I had to pull out because I wasn't in the right shape to do it. I was particularly welcomed the contribution of Councillor Wilson, who described me, quotes, as a lightweight for pulling out. So I do hope that, Councillor Wilson, should the event be running next year, you can run alongside me and help me get round the course in good time. The crowds were out in force to cheer the competitors filling Stafford Town Centre at the finish line, and for 9 years now the Ironman event has showcased Staffordshire to an international audience and boosted the local economy as athletes and families stay and spend locally. And I know from reports that I received, Stafford Town Centre was absolutely buzzing on the Sunday, which was brilliant. Congratulations to everyone who took part this year, and thanks to the staff and volunteers who make these events possible. And the volunteers in particular, I know we've got a volunteer who works in our office who found it tremendously rewarding to do that. The recent glorious weather has helped our highways crews accelerate work across the county to fix and improve more roads, which is excellent news. Good roads are important for residents, motorists, and of course the economy. This is why we recently announced an extra investment of £5 million in pothole repairs on top of the extra £30 million investment in larger repairs and resurfacing of roads and junctions over the next 2 years. And I was fortunate enough to meet with the Managing Director of Amy last week, the company that we work with to deliver our repairs, and he is as determined as I am to see that work completed efficiently to the satisfaction of as many people as we possibly can get. There will be some disruption during resurfacing and pothole repairs, and I ask motorists and residents to plan ahead and bear with us whilst these important works take place. It's important also to note that with the utilities undertaking works as well, sometimes you'll find the gas works, the water works and the highways works taking place at different times, which is inconvenient to people, but we do our best to minimise that. Another top investment area for the County Council is our economy. How we create the right conditions for it to grow and create more good jobs and opportunities for Staffordshire people. As part of this work, we joined forces with our district and borough council partners last month at the UK's largest conference for developers and investors, UK Reef in Leeds. We announced investment opportunities at I-54 in South Staffordshire and a major regeneration project here in Stafford Town Centre. But most importantly, all 9 councils spoke with one voice to raise the profile of our county, explain why this is such a great place to do business, and showcase the great quality of life that you can enjoy here. And we are working with Staffordshire businesses, large and small, to reduce their impact on the environment, cut energy costs, and to help tackle climate change. Steelite and Michelin Tyre plc have generously agreed to sponsor the County Council-run Staffordshire Business and Environment Network, and thanks to their backing, more businesses in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent can benefit from environmental legislation, updates, events, networking, and a bespoke carbon tracker. The County Council is doing its bit too, and this month our highways inspectors took delivery of 9 fully electric cars, each car saving around 2 tonnes of CO2 emissions per year, as the highways inspectors will travel the county identifying roads for repair. And finally, a new initiative to support people with mental health issues and drug and alcohol use is being pioneered in Staffordshire. Thought to be the first of its kind in the county, the new ICON, which stands for Integrated Co-Occurring Needs Pathway. Wow, what a mouthful. Let's stick with ICON. We'll bring together local authority, NHS, voluntary and community sectors in a single approach. Mental health issues and drug or alcohol use often come hand in hand, and there is a need for more focus on addressing the root causes of problems, which ICON is designed to do. I look forward to seeing the impact of this in the coming months. And so, ladies and gentlemen, on to our next item, which is agenda item number 5, which are the minutes of the Property Subcommittee held on the 7th of June. Can have those indicated as a correct record. They are moved. Agenda item 6 is volunteering for Staffordshire County Council, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. And can I associate myself with the comments that you made about the volunteers that helped out in the Ironman event, which obviously showcases the wonderful county that we live in, and the people that give themselves and their time absolutely selflessly to help with these the organised events of this kind. So thank you. So today we're sharing with Cabinet 9 newly created volunteering principles for the organisation to consider and commit to. We've developed these principles to ensure that we're doing everything we can as an organisation to support people that give up their time to volunteer for Staffordshire County Council. Volunteers play a crucial role in helping us to support our residents and our communities, from maintaining our highways and green spaces to supporting families and our local libraries. As we've mentioned in the report in paragraphs 4 and 5, it's also important to recognise that people who volunteer can also really benefit from the experience in terms of their own health and well-being. This is supported by research undertaken by the National Council of Volunteering Organisations and their Time Well Spent survey. Volunteering can help to reduce social isolation and improve mental health and well-being. Furthermore, as many volunteers undertake activities within their localities, it can help them to really feel part of their own communities. Volunteering also helps people of all generations to learn new skills and meet new people. As our volunteers give their time to help us, it's important that we do all we can as an organisation to provide a consistent and positive experience for them. A recent review found that there are some inconsistencies in how we currently support our volunteers, which are detailed further in the report on paragraphs 9 through to 12. With this in mind, we have developed a set of principles which can be seen in paragraph 15 of the report, which have created in consultation with our VCSE partners, volunteers and a group of officers who work closely with our existing volunteers within our communities. Colleagues have also told us that they would value additional guidance on how to best support our volunteers, and in response to this, we've developed a suite of guidance documents for officers to use with our volunteers, which we are also sharing with Cabinet today. These guidance documents have been designed to assist officers with practical, everyday issues so that we can deliver on our principles and our volunteers are supported to have a positive experience. With the principles and guidance documents in mind, I'm today recommending, I can say the recommendations now or I can leave it until after questions, but just to confirm that the work that's been presented today has come from lessons that we have learnt and feedback from volunteers and partners during, obviously during the COVID-19 response. And as a result, an action was identified in the community's delivery plan in 2023. And the specific action was to review our current support for council volunteers and develop practical guidance for our staff. The community's leadership group agreed to develop a set of principles for the organisation to commit to ensure that all council volunteers have a positive experience. So before I go into the recommendations, I'm happy to invite questions, Leader.
No one's indicating, Councillor Wilson. I think you've done a... Oh, sorry, we've got a couple there. start with Councillor Sutton and then Councillor Jessel, please.
I mean, then it's not a question. It's more a comment. Really, I really welcome this report. I think, as Councillor Wilson has explained, volunteers play a massive role in this county. So there is, I think, everything in here should be absolutely welcomed. You know, and the strength of our work with volunteers, I think, has skyrocketed recently. You know, over the last few years. You know, particularly under the leadership of the current cabinet member.
Councillor Jessel.
Yes, thank you very much. My comments are also very much in support of this. Volunteers are a vital part of our community, and I think the point that Councillor Wilson said is that they not only benefit the people they're helping, but actually there's a lot of personal satisfaction and the rewards can be tremendous in that respect. As I say, very much support this. I think volunteers, we do need to make sure that they are supported, they're nurtured, because we need a constant new supply of volunteers coming onto the market. When I looked at the report and I thought 500 doesn't sound a lot, but of course those are volunteers registered with the County Council. We mustn't forget that within our society there are certainly some companies who encourage their staff and give staff time off to do voluntary work in their local communities. So there is a bigger picture, and I think within the whole of our Staffordshire community there are probably a lot more volunteers, and perhaps this kind of ethos of having 9 principles could be shared with some of the business community, because they have a big role to play, and I know there are a lot of businesses who do like to play their part in supporting their local communities, but I very much welcome and support this work. Thank you.
Councillor Jessel, I think you make a really important set of points there. We forget how many people actually volunteer because we call them school governors instead, but they're actually volunteers. Parish councillors, they're actually volunteers. Members of parent-teacher associations, actually volunteers. Members of the Village Hall Committee, volunteers. There's a lot of volunteers that just get on with it without without seeking any thanks at all. I suppose one of the points that you make very, very well indeed is the fact that we need to keep recruiting a new pool of volunteers, because in my experience, having been on a PTA, Village Hall Committee and a parish council in the village, it's generally the same dozen or so people sitting on most of those committees, and what we do need to do is make sure that we're constantly getting that churn of new people coming in, because the rewards of volunteering are huge in terms of your mental well-being and your feeling as part of the community. And so I would strongly advocate for people getting involved in the voluntary sector, and I would congratulate Councillor Wilson on the hard work that she's doing to promote this aspect of the County Council's work, because it is very, very important. Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Councillor White. You very eloquently took the words out of my mouth, Mr. White. The work that volunteers do, there's 500 or so registered and working with the County Council. There are thousands of volunteers across the county. Each one of those volunteers really enrich the lives of the people of Staffordshire. And you're right, Alan, you generally find in a village that a handful of people run the local cricket club, run the local football club, or on the parish council. It's right, Councillor Wilson, and thank you for the work that you are doing. It's right that we really appreciate the work that these people do, and more importantly, further develop and help these people to do the work that they do. A very, very good report, which I warmly welcome, Leader.
Councillor White, and then back to Councillor Wilson for summing up and recommendations.
Yeah, thank you. So I was at the first conference for the MAT that the school where I'm a governor at has held. They're a fast-growing MAT, 10 primary schools across Staffordshire, South Derbyshire, and a few in Walsall now. And a big part of the evening was talking about exactly this. It's how do the schools in that MAT, the local governing bodies and the MAT board, recruit more volunteers, and we were talking about who are all the stakeholders in those communities and how can we get them more engaged. So this is a It's a shared challenge, isn't it, across volunteering of any type. And it's always that question of, you know, what are the hooks that you can deploy to get more people to come in? Because when people start, their circumstances may dictate that they come and go after a number of years. But when they start, most people find they really enjoy volunteering. So I think this is highly necessary work, but also work that I've got a high degree of confidence will be effective. So I'll be really pleased to support it, and more strength to your arm, Councillor Wilson, in your work in this area.
Thank you very much for those very kind and correct comments. Yes, we do have so many unsung volunteers in this county, from parish councils, the volunteers within the districts and boroughs, all our partners, our library service, you know, Community Speedwatch. I could go on and on and on. We can't underestimate the work that the volunteers do. They are a golden thread running through this county, and we are very, very grateful for them. You know what they say, if you want something done, ask a busy person, and it is always those same people, isn't it? Anyway, without further ado, I will just go forward with the recommendations. Just bear with me. The screen just went black. Sorry. It just went black.
There are three recommendations. Consider and commit to the 9 new volunteering principles for the organisation to adopt. Second, consider and approve the implementation of the attached volunteering guidance documents for managers and colleagues supporting council volunteers. And finally, approves the proposed plan to embed this approach across the organisation and further develop our volunteer offer, noting the approach to monitor progress. And hopefully Councillor Wilson's ITs come back to life. But notwithstanding that fact, they are the 3 recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That is unanimous. Moving forward to the next item on the agenda item number 7, which is the Joint Coroner's Service Legal Framework and Financial Protocol. Before I ask you to come in, Councillor Wilson, is your IT back with us? It always goes out at a really inconvenient time, doesn't it? We're back with you, Councillor Wilson.
Don't ever say that my portfolio isn't varied in nature, from volunteers to the Joint Coroner's Service. So in February 2022, as you'll all be aware, Cabinet gave approval in principle for a Joint Coroner's Service to be created by the merger of the 2 coroner areas for Staffordshire South and North Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. Since that time, and it has been a while, we have developed the financial protocol and heads of terms for a legal framework to ensure robust governance for the joint service is in place. We've also received notification that the Chief Coroner is content for the merger to take place, and the Minister has given his agreement for legislative process to take place following the targeted consultation carried out by the Ministry of Justice. Subject to approval by Cabinet and that of Stoke-on-Trent City Council, which actually that took place yesterday, and I'm very happy to say that that was approved in Stoke. The statutory instrument will be laid in Parliament in September for the merger to take place from October the 1st this year. So it's proposed that we have a single back office coroner support team managed by Stoke-on-Trent City Council. The original view was to retain existing staff on Staffordshire County Council contracts and allow the experienced staff with long service to retire over time, and for future staff for the centralised back office to be appointed by Stoke-on-Trent City Council. However, due to the delay whilst permission was awaited from the Chief Coroner to allow the business case to progress, there have been staffing changes within the team. So it's now been agreed with Stoke-on-Trent Council that staff will transfer to Stoke under Cabinet Office Statement of Practice and the transfer of undertakings. Now, staff turnover during the last 6 months has resulted in new recruits being employed in the Coroner's Service, and they were made aware of the new plan for future arrangements at interview stage, so there should be no issues with that. Arrangements for inquests are to be held locally in Stafford, and they will be maintained. The financial governance structure for the joint service will be provided by a financial protocol accompanying this report, and the financial commitments for both local authorities are capped at the current budget envelope for this year and next year. There are no further charges. Future budgets will be agreed annually as part of both local authorities' annual budget setting process, and apportionment of the costs will be reviewed every 3 years by local authorities, and that's all based on population. A joint committee will be formed consisting of Staffordshire County Council Cabinet members, Stoke-on-Trent City Council Cabinet members, and support from finance and legal officers to provide scrutiny, oversight and performance management. And I do have the recommendations ready once the questions haven't been... Any questions from anybody? Very well, thank you. Okay, so I recommend that Cabinet agrees the heads of terms for the legal framework for Staffordshire County Council to enter a partnership with Stoke-on-Trent City Council to allow the operation of a joint coroner service through the Joint Executive Committee, subject to a similar resolution being passed by Stoke-on-Trent City Council and subject to ministerial sign-off, and agrees that the merger should take place subject to a similar resolution being passed as it has been yesterday by Stoke-on-Trent Council and subject to ministerial sign-off, and to delegate authority to the Director of Economy, Infrastructure and Skills in consultation with the Cabinet member for myself for Communities and Culture to take all steps necessary to enable the joint agreement, and finally, members, to delegate authority to the Director for Corporate Services in consultation with the Cabinet member for Communities and Culture to finalise any legal agreement. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the subject of a very, very long-running process of which you are all extremely familiar with the detail. With that, I don't anticipate there will be any questions, but I will open it up just on the off chance that there might be, given the time it's taken for Councillor Wilson to get to resolution here. And congratulations, by the way. I think we're probably questioned out on this. Councillor DeVille.
Only a very brief point, Leader, please. And I agree totally with the framework and and this process, Councillor Wilson. You mentioned that there has been staff turnover. Obviously, with this being a most sensitive service that we provide, I would ask Staffordshire County Council and Stoke-on-Trent City Council to keep very, very close to that, to staff turnover. Keep very, very close to retention of staff and recruitment of staff. And I'm sure that will happen.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille. You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour?
Agreed.
Okay, for the record, that is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. We now move to Staffordshire Means Back to Business oral update. Now, poor old Councillor White, I often steal quite a bit of his thunder during the leader's opening remarks. I'm afraid I might well have done it again, Councillor White, but notwithstanding that, we are all literally quivering in anticipation, waiting for your report. So please do tell us what you've got.
Thank you very much, Leader. So I always enjoy the game of Double Jeopardy with these updates, but I will confess to colleagues that I did sneak a look at your notes in advance of the meeting this time to make sure there wasn't an overlap. And that also gives the game away that your leader's update is not entirely off the cuff and spontaneous, but still very exciting whenever you deliver it.
Say it again, but more sincerely.
Without further ado, and without putting my position at any more jeopardy, I'll move on to the update. So, in recent months, we've had considerable discussion around employment rates and job seekers allowance, and this month I wanted to go into some detail about the work that we're doing in the employment and skills arena. Which is one of the enormous success stories of Staffordshire, with 42,000 new jobs being created within the county since 2010, but an area that is a constant priority and a constant source of attention and innovation for us to make sure that we are delivering on one of the most important things any local authority can, which is making sure that Staffordshire people have access to good jobs and career opportunities and the skills that they need to access those. In terms of the job claimant figures, the job seekers allowance claimant figures, I'll start with those. I'm pleased to report, colleagues, that after a few months of small increases in those, particularly as seasonal jobs ended, we saw a decrease this month in our total number of claimants of 465. So our unemployment rate is currently standing at 2.9%, which is considerably lower than the national average, which is 3.8% and the regional average of 4.9%. Within that, we also saw a small decrease in the number of young people claiming universal credit as well, which now sits at 4.6%. That is the same percentage rate, but we've seen a numerical reduction in the number of young people claiming universal credit, and that's against a national rate of 4.9% and a regional rate of 6.6%. So again, whilst it's important that we help those people to get to where they need to in terms of accessing work, our numbers compare well both regionally and nationally. Those decreases in the universal credit claimant rates also coincide with a 26% increase in jobs vacancies between April and May within the county. So again, we're seeing the impact of seasonality there, but also the strength of our economy. So a 26% increase in the amount of vacancies available, and there are now 1.6 jobs available for every claimant within the county. So our focus is rightly on supporting those people who are looking for a job to get into one of those many jobs that are out there and available for them. I've mentioned before to Cabinet that we have recently established the Staffordshire Jobs and Careers Service to help people to find a job locally, but also to access the skills package that they might need to be able to do that job. And I'm pleased to say that that is developing fast. We now have 6 employment brokers in post who are proactively working both with employers and with individuals who are looking for jobs and skills packages and joining them together. We've got a 7th broker who we're hoping we'll have on board in the summer, so that continues to roll. And that is a really important contribution that we are making as the County Council to joining those job seekers together with the employers and training that they need. That will be further enhanced by the contributions that we're receiving from the developers of the West Midlands Interchange Scheme in the south of the county, where there will be a specific recruitment effort to bring in the many people that are going to be required for that site. So that will continue to grow. The partner to the Stafford Jobs and Careers Service is our Open Door Staffordshire programme, which has been running for many years and supports work placements within the County Council and with partner organisations, and particularly for those who find employment hard to access, so people who have challenges in terms of accessing employment can go to that scheme, and we have a very good track record of helping those people into placements. We currently have 47 open door candidates in placements from this financial year, so that's since April 2022, so that again gives you an idea of the pace at which we are able to put people into those. We're also currently working on the consultation for developing a new employment and skills strategy for Staffordshire. So this is the future look at what employment and skills provision we need within the county. An early draft of that strategy has been out for public consultation. It will be coming to our Prosperous Staffordshire Scrutiny Committee in September, and then I'll be bringing it to Cabinet for determination. One of the areas within that strategy that is emerging as a very high priority is access to high quality apprenticeships. We're seeing a real growth in demand for that access, but there are particular pressures for small and medium-sized enterprises in terms of being able to get apprentices on board. So I'm very pleased that the County Council is supporting the recently relaunched, Ladder for Staffordshire, which is a partnership effort from various stakeholders in the county to support access to apprenticeships, with the aim of securing an additional 1,500 apprenticeships in Staffordshire, so people in apprenticeship roles by January 2025. That ladder brings together key stakeholders from the private and public sector, the chambers of commerce, and also has the support of central government. So its patron is Robert Halfron, the Minister of State for Education, specifically the patron for our scheme here in Staffordshire. The scheme is on track to meet its first year target, which is securing 400 new apprenticeships within the county, and I'd encourage everybody to take an interest in what they are doing. The ladder team will also be featuring in the judging panel for the future Staffordshire Apprenticeship graduation ceremony, which is happening on the 27th of June at the Staffordshire Showground. That's in its 8th year now, that graduation ceremony for apprentices, and a really, really good opportunity every year to celebrate the diversity in terms of both geography but also the qualifications that people are achieving through the apprenticeship route. It's an enormous range and of huge value to businesses in the county. Moving on from that, our community learning service is another key block in our offer to help people to access employment and to upskill. It's particularly important for those people who are either in employment but would like to upskill, a challenge in Staffordshire as in many other places where we have people in lower skilled occupations who we would like to see progress, both in terms of the sustainability of their job prospects and also to increase their earnings. And I'm very pleased to say that this year we've had a visit from Ofsted, and we received a good rating for our community learning service. Although they don't provide sort of grades in between the goods and outstandings, looking at the feedback from it, it was a very strong good indeed. So another key building block there, and huge credit to this organisation, the strength and commitment of the team that we have delivering in that area. So there's a few things that we're doing to support employment and skills in our county, and the success of that, I think, can be seen over that long span, with 42,000 jobs created since 2010, but also in that continuing growth in employment in our county. The trend is very strong for our area, even though we see short-term decreases in employment sometimes for seasonal reasons or others. We are an employment powerhouse and a jobs powerhouse, and this county council is working very hard to support those things, as we have for many years. Moving on from that, and in closing, I would just like to celebrate another area of success for Staffordshire, which is our recent wins at the National Visit England Awards for Excellence, where 3 of our visitor economy businesses have collected awards, most notably the National Memorial Arboretum, who won gold for Business Events Venue of the Year. So we all know of the Arboretum, obviously, for its role in commemorating the contributions that many people, service people and others, have made to our national life, often at the greatest of personal cost. But it's also one of the best business events venues in the country. I've been to some brilliant conferences there, heart of the country, very easy to access, enormous high quality, gold award winning at the Visit England Awards. In addition to that, the Duncombe Arms, which I've also had the pleasure of visiting, won the award for Pub of the Year nationally, and Trentham Gardens won the award for Unsung Hero. So it's fantastic to see our visitor economy, our tourism businesses competing at that highest level across the whole country. The final thing that I will say relating to the visitor economy is I'm also very pleased that we are on the verge of being able to secure the status of Staffordshire, both Stoke-on-Trent and the county of Staffordshire, as being a local visitor economy partnership. That's accreditation from Visit England as being one of the major visitor economy locations in the UK. It comes with funding and access to various opportunities on a national level, and I'm hoping that by the autumn I'll be able to report that we've successfully secured one of those. So with that, Leader, I'll hand back to you. I don't think there was any crossover, was there?
Very comprehensive. Any questions for Councillor White before we move to the next agenda item? Thank you. Agenda item number 9 is Community Learning Ofsted Inspection and Accountability Agreement, brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, who's just getting to the right bit in his IT, and I'm, as you can see, padding out, filling in and trying to generally extend my little piece whilst he got it. Brought to you by Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. So I mentioned the community learning service in the economy update a moment ago, and this is a formal item which is required to approve the accountability statement for the 2023-2024 academic year. That's our quality assurance essentially for the delivery of this service. I did sneak in an additional recommendation, though, which was to commend the outcome of the recent Ofsted inspection and its contribution to Staffordshire's priorities and its contribution to our citizens. I felt that was really important to do because this service is an absolute jewel in our crown, and one that had to reinvent itself during the pandemic when provision for several thousand adult learners, all delivered in person in various venues around the county, all had to go online and be reinvented pretty much overnight. The fact that we were able to successfully do that and then successfully wind that back to an extent where now we have a blended offer where people can meet in person to learn but also meet online. And to do all of that and to come out fairly shortly afterwards with a good rating from Ofsted is an amazing testament to that team. And so I felt it was important that we had both of those recommendations here for you to vote on. So the background to this in brief is that the council receives funding for education through community adult learning via the Education and Skills Funding Agency, and that budget is what allows us to commission the various courses that we provide for adults around the county. The purpose of that community learning is to improve the lives of Staffordshire residents and to grow the local economy by providing a range of lifelong learning opportunities. Principally, those opportunities are focused on priorities around improving health, reducing dependence, increasing economic prosperity, addressing inequality, and realising our aspirations for people to achieve a better future. That community learning is commissioned with a range of providers. As I mentioned earlier, it's across the county, but those providers include schools, colleges, third sector organisations, local community groups, and there is a small proportion of courses that we consider to be particularly important, but where those external partners cannot provide them, where we deliver them directly within the county council. The learning is delivered through 4 main strands of delivery. So the first is our community learning framework. The second is our community learning trust responsiveness fund. The third is our wider family learning grants for schools package, and the fourth is our direct delivery unit. The overall effectiveness for our Ofsted inspection, as I mentioned, was good. But within that, it's important to note that all of the strands of that were good. So overall effectiveness, quality of education, personal development, leadership and management, and we have effective safeguarding, which is a pass or fail. So it really is a strong offer. In terms of other things to note, of our learners, about 50% of our enrolments come from learners who live in wards that we target because they're areas of higher social deprivation. So the learning that we provide is very much targeted to those people who are likely to benefit from it the most. And I'm pleased to say that those areas of high social deprivation are relatively few in number in Staffordshire, so that proportion really is quite a significant thing to note. Also, it's important to note that around 55% of those enrolments are from learners whose highest qualification is below a level 2. So they're people who don't have GCSEs or above. So again, in terms of the level that we are getting people to engage with us at is exactly the right level. It's people who don't have qualifications more often than not. And the courses that they are most typically engaging in are courses that will help them with that. So they're courses around digital skills, employability courses, and courses that will help people improve their English and maths skills. So the provision that we have is I think very much fit for purpose. I think I'm going to leave the presentation there because I'm conscious that we could go into the granular detail of every line item in this report, but I trust that colleagues will have read it and may have some questions for me. So I'll read the recommendations at the end if you'd like me to, but I think that's the point where I'll invite questions if there are any.
Councillor Sutton.
So not a question, just a comment, and really welcome this report. And I just wanted to add that as part of this, Ofsted visited our children's centres, and within the report commented very favourably on the practice that was there, particularly in engaging families in hard-to-reach areas.
Nobody else is indicating, Councillor White, so if you could come back to the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'll talk them into submission. So the recommendations are, firstly, that Cabinet commends the outcome of the recent Ofsted inspection and the contribution to Staffordshire priorities made by this service. And secondly, that Cabinet approves the accountability statement for the 2023-2024 academic year.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Moving then to the Integrated Performance and Finance Financial Outturn Report 2022-2023. I can report to you before we get going, and I ask Councillor Parry to talk about the money, that myself and Mrs Bissell went to corporate scrutiny yesterday, and I think we were given a pretty thorough grilling about the Integrated Performance Report yesterday. Scrutiny did a good job of sense checking our Integrated Performance Report, in particular focusing in on special educational needs, educational health and care plans, where of course there is some pressure around the budget. Children's services performance, financial performance was picked up, and I think Councillor Parry might speak to that momentarily. There was some conversations around the cost of home care, care home, and also the strategy or social workers strategy that you're bringing forward. Sorry if I've mangled that for you, Councillor Jessel, but you know what I'm talking about, even if those watching don't. Charges for household waste recycling centres were an issue that were raised, and the government's and potential changes there. And so I think in general I would say that the scrutiny committee was challenging, but added value. It was Councillor Wilcox's first time chairing the scrutiny committee, and I think he did a really good job of hosting that. So I think what we've tried to do with this report, and I'm not going to go into it line by line, because as Cabinet members are aware, even those people watching might not be, we go through this in a great deal of detail, and we spend a lot of time making sure that we are held to account for the delivery of our work, because it's vital that we are, first of all, spending council taxpayers' money responsibly, and secondly, that we're held to account for the performance of this organisation. I might invite portfolio holders just to draw out some of the important points that as they relate to their portfolio. And so, again, I'll just pause with Councillor Parry on the finance side as we go through the actual performance side. So I'll just start, if I may, with health and care, and invite Councillor Jessel just to draw out anything that you may wish to draw out from the performance report in your section. Councillor Jessel.
Thank you very much for that, Leader. Well, I think one of the first points I will make is that in accordance with performance indicators, both in terms of performance and finance, it's showing green. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Richard Harling and his team for all the hard work that they put in over the years and continue to do so. It's culmination of a lot of effort. A lot of initiatives have been brought in, and it's always very difficult to actually pin what benefits each initiative have, but overall the picture is very promising. And as I say, I would like to thank Richard and his team for all their efforts. In terms of adult social care, demand for assessments is now 17% up on pre-COVID levels. And it's in that environment of increased assessments and also attempts to reduce the backlog for assessments for deprivation of liberty assessments, that actually we've used additional resources, some temporary staff, to actually ensure that those assessments are done in a timely way. In terms of timeliness as well, I think Performance overall has been the best in recent years, with 86% of assessments for adult social care done in their 12-month review period, which again is very good. And also assessments and placing people through the brokerage system is also good. Doles, as I've mentioned, and we've had briefings on this, is an ongoing challenge not only for this authority but every adult social care authority in the country. We were hoping that new legislation would be brought in. That has been shelved as far as we know, but as you know, I have written to the Secretary of State imploring them to bring that legislation forward. The DOLS process at the moment is very bureaucratic, very legalistic, with 6 assessments required, or assessments required by 6 different sets of professionals. And in some cases, that level of input is still required. In the majority of cases, it isn't. So I do hope our plea for common sense to bear will actually bring some changes. Just want to highlight 1 or 2 things. The Supportive Communities Programme continues to signpost people for information, to self-help, and also to help people maintain their independence for much longer, which is one of our key aims. And I think the work that Councillor Wilson has been doing with our volunteers, our community champions, is actually paying dividends in that respect. The Staffordshire Warmer Homes programme continues, and now there is a total of 886 properties have benefited from a number of schemes to improve their heating systems, their insulation, and there are a good distribution of those packages of assistance across the county. And particularly, as we all know, with heating bills have been going up and up. It's even more important not only in terms of that cost of living pressure, but also in terms of benefits for our green agenda and improving our environment. The financial outturn, there is a small saving, which compared with the total budget is very small at 26,000, but it is on the right side. And again, thanks to the teams, the people who have put in consistent work over the year. The dashboard, I always think, which is at the end of the report, actually illustrates a lot of the steady progress and improvements in performance, and particularly in safeguarding assessments where significant effort has been made. We've re-looked and slimmed down the processes, the bureaucratic processes, because this is the consistent approach that the authority has for improving our efficiency, and again is showing those improvements. Finally, I did say, I think it was last year, that the CQC assessments of services registered with them wasn't good enough in terms of particularly nursing homes and care homes. We were below the national average. Again, through that dashboard, you will see that that is improving. We've made investments in our quality teams, and that is beginning to bear fruits. I was very keen that while we're not direct providers, we do actually support care homes and nursing homes to improve their standard of care, because I want people in Staffordshire to have the best that they can have. So that is a very brief summary. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you very much, Leader. I think it's fair to say that 2022-23 has been a particularly challenging year for children's services, particularly on the back of COVID and the impact that lockdown has had on many children and families. That linked with us implementing the transformation programme just before that. We've seen a rise in the number of more complex children that are referred to us. There's been pressures in the placement market and difficulties with recruitment and retention, not just of our own staff, but particularly in relation to foster carers, a point I'll come on to later. This has resulted in more children in care, and this is the main reason for the pressures that we faced financially. That said, Cabinet approved investment to assist with these pressures and help with workforce retention in particular, and offers up more capacity. We're working hard and staff are working hard on a placement sufficiency strategy to look at placements for the children that we have in care, and there are a number of work streams going ahead at this moment in time. One around children in care, the children's workforce, the SEND area, which I'm sure Jonathan will speak to in a while, and the general children and families system. There is plenty of other good news. Our Supporting Families programme, which was previously Building Resilient Families, exceeded the targets that we had to achieve. We've been nationally accredited for the work that we do, and now provide, or will start to provide, peer support for other authorities for which we get financial support for. We took the opportunity to increase the fostering allowance to help with the recruitment and retention of foster carers. Our Household Support Fund, during that year, we provided £15 million worth of financial assistance around providing school meals, vouchers for children entitled to free school meals, engaging the Winter Warmth programme, and one initiative purchased and supplied 18,000 slow cookers to families to help with food and meals. The holiday activity and food scheme saw 80,000 places offered around the county with a 60% take-up rate, which compared nationally very, very well. And that was 2,000 individual children throughout the holiday periods who engaged in that. And that helps with children's mental well-being, their development, and also ensuring that they have a healthy meal. And within that programme, what we were doing and providing for children with special education needs received national recognition. So absolutely more to do as we go forward over the next 12 months. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the staff that work tirelessly every day to keep children within this county safe. And I'll pay a particular make particular mention at an event on Sunday, which is our Long Service Awards for foster carers that myself and other members of the corporate parenting panel will be attending, which will celebrate a total of 651 years of service amongst 43 different households, and there will be one award for one foster carer who has done 40 years of service with us. Thank you, Leader.
Tremendous. Councillor Price.
Thank you, Leader, and thanks for the opportunity, of course, to raise some of the highlights within the education and SEND portfolio. So good news that 95% of parents were allocated their first choice primary school for their children, and over 99% one of their top three choices. For secondary, this was 92.5% for a first choice and 97% for one of their top three. This demonstrates that we are ensuring there are sufficient places across the county to meet the demand of growth due to housing. And we've opened 2 new academies last September, one in Uttoxeter and one in Lichfield. And this coming September, we'll see a school in Stafford moved to a bigger site, which will be the Kingston Centre, as well as another new academy in Lichfield. This means that we have 404 stated funded schools in Staffordshire, and at their most recent inspections, 351, or approximately 88%, judged as good or outstanding. As the Leader highlighted earlier, the SEND system continues to face challenges with increasing demand and complexity, and we're working with our partners to improve the lived experience. A consultation of our specialist provision strategy was launched on the 17th of May and will conclude on the 5th of July. Once the responses have been analysed, we will be bringing a report which sets out how we will be developing the specialist provision across Staffordshire, which will include an enhanced district inclusion support model, so that we can provide mainstream education settings with the resources and support to deliver the graduated approach, as well as the creation of additional provision in Staffordshire special schools based on a detailed analysis of their need. We are also consulting on the needs assessment pathway, which seeks views on the proposals to introduce a pre-statutory process to ensure schools and education settings are supported to access further additional advice, support and resources in order to meet the needs of children and young people in their settings. I'd also like to take this opportunity, as Mark has done too, to thank the staff who've worked incredibly hard, particularly in the districts, and Tim Moss in particular as well, who have all made sure that we give the best possible standard of care and support to our most vulnerable learners within the county. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'd just like to echo your comments about scrutiny. I think in the agenda which I'm involved in, which is the Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, the Prosperous Scrutiny Committee is a critical friend that adds value to all of our agendas, so really good feedback on scrutiny. Also, we have a working group that's covering the climate change agenda, which is working hand in hand with me on some of the challenges we have to reach our net zero target. So I'm looking forward to working with them even more in the future. I think a point over the waste recycling sites. Obviously, we have government legislation that comes along all the time that we have to integrate. That's been clarified now relating to the DIY waste costs, and we'll be integrating that into our plan for as we take our household waste recycling sites even more forward than we have over the last year, which has seen them improve significantly, and bringing them in-house was a really good decision, and we're seeing the benefits of that now, and we'll see the benefits of that control we have over those in the future to increase the amount of materials that we are recycling and reusing at those sites. Second thing I was going to talk about is the since the elections and the change of control in some districts, it's really important that we continue to work together with our districts and county together. And yesterday was the first meeting since the election of the Stafford Sustainability Board. So we're up and running again on those key priorities, working together so we reach our target of not only net zero, but also nature recovery and all the other things that we're working together on. And I can report back that that is now set fair to go forward and work together, which is really key to reach our goals. And then lastly, I was just going to make a plug for the Carbon Bubble Roadshow. Rolls into Leek at Sparrow Park in Derby Street on Saturday. So already been to Newcastle and Stafford. So Leek's turn, and a really good event for people to go along to and just understand what amount of carbon emissions that are created and the actual physical 1 tonne, as you see, which you'll see in the in Sparrow Park. So I encourage all people in Leek to go over and have a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. So as members can see from the report, we have finalised our contract with Amy for a 5-year extension, with each facet being individually assessed on an annual basis so that we can actually work with them should there be any issues. We've also ensured that the transformation programme has progressed really well, which it is, and the new models are starting to work as we can speak. We have come out of a particularly difficult winter with the fact of the really, really low temperatures, and that has caused us several areas where we've had really deep Category 1 defects, which we're now addressing right at this moment in time. But I have to say that we have to pay a little bit of credit to the people out there working in these high temperatures with high temperature materials, and are still doing the work that we're continuing. And as such, we have, as it says in the schemes, completed some capital programmes, but I was fortunate enough to attend one with Councillor Wilcox yesterday, or day before yesterday, sorry, in Burntwood, where there's an island that's been done to a really, really high standard, and they also did extra little bits around the area, which has really come on and made both residents and the councillors very happy. So when it comes to highways, at this present moment in time, we are progressing. We are working hard to ensure that we are able to address as many of the issues and defects out there as possible, as well as addressing these capital programmes. JCB roundabout roaster's already started. These sort of the issues where we've had for a while, and the extra investment that this administration's enabled us to have, along with the pothole money, is going to make a real difference for residents out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Mr White. Yeah, some real highlights and achievements there from my fellow cabinet members in their extremely challenging areas of work, Chairman. I warmly welcome this report. I think the measurement of our performance is essential, and we take it very seriously. There's no complacency whatsoever. I always think that if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So it's essential that we carry on closely measuring our level of service. With regard to highways, Chairman, if I may just comment, Mr Williams is right. The AMI contract was signed. That contract will be very, very closely monitored, on an ongoing basis, and closely measured and reviewed as necessary. The transformation plan, you were right, Chairman, with your comment earlier. I think the good weather has resulted in more work being carried out on our highways, and I think we can all see that. But again, there's no complacency whatsoever, and we'll look at the highways service on a function-by-function basis and very, very closely monitor, measure and adjust as necessary all of those individual functions. And in my area of work, Chairman, in property, obviously we have a massive property portfolio. Some of that property is now surplus to requirement, and we measured on the sale and disposal of that property. The remaining property, it's essential that we maintain it properly. And I have an item on Cabinet later, Chairman, where we measure how we maintain our properties. So I warmly welcome this report, Chairman, and thank the Cabinet members and the members of staff in all of those areas for the work that they do in their own challenging areas.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille. We're going to come to the money now. Councillor Parry, if you could just take us through that financial component, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. What we just said really underlines the size and complexity of an upper tier authority like Staffordshire County Council, in that there are several areas of function that are quite different, you know, from repairing our highways, maintaining our infrastructure, investing in our infrastructure, investing in our economy, looking after our environment, looking after communities, crucially looking after our vulnerable elderly, children, etc. They're all disparate services. But interestingly, in this report, it's a success story of good budgetary control and good budgetary management. There isn't a council, certainly isn't an upper tier council, or if there are very few of them, that don't currently have challenges, financial challenges. But most of those, or many of those, are often structural in that high levels of debt or other issues which have not been properly addressed. Here in Staffordshire, we don't have those issues. We have pressures which we are addressing, and those pressures are predominantly around children's. Hence, we have an overspend at the year end of just over £11 million, of which almost all of it is about the pressure upon our children's services. But that in itself, in a way, is a success story, even though we've got an overspend of 11 million. It means that we've been prepared to invest in the area of keeping children safe and making sure they're looked after, addressing the issues of families that are struggling, and supporting communities. We recognise that was a challenge for us quite some time ago, and have been prepared to invest whilst we're transitioning that service. And that investment is starting to show some signs of paying off. There is now a higher rate of children returning from care to families, and those are early indicators, lead indicators, that this strategy is working. But there's no part of this budget which shows any kind of financial deviation which is down to policy or decision making by this cabinet. None of it's to do with decisions that have been made which have caused us to overspend. The decisions and policy making of this cabinet have addressed the key areas of pressure and need, and have therefore allowed us to settle a budget in almost every area which is balanced. And that's a pretty difficult thing to achieve, given the figures that we're dealing with, given the size of the budget that we've got. To actually get it down to that level is remarkable. And within that, of course, we've also invested additionally in those areas where we know are a priority for residents, such as our highways and infrastructure, where again, this year, as well as last year and the year before, we're investing further. But not just investing, innovating as well. And that area of innovation is the thing that makes this budget a success, based on several years of that level of innovation to address problems, to improve what we do, and to ensure that we can stay within our budget. We haven't let things slip, and it may well look like we've let things slip in children's because it's spending a lot of money. But the demand and the rapid nature of the demand is such that is very difficult to curtail. But I think what we know is that we are confident now that we've identified and analysed and understood the problem and understood where the investment needs to be made, which we've made last year and this year to make sure that that works. And apart from that, there's other areas, as colleagues have already said, in terms of our investments, capital and otherwise, from investing in schools, in our capital programme, investing in supporting families with the additional funding that's gone into supporting families with cost of living challenges, across a range of areas that we've invested in from the Council's point of view, and areas that my colleague Mark DeVille mentioned in terms of asset disposal, which has been really important for us. And whilst targets were quite challenging, I think, realising something like £2.5 million of disposal of surplus assets, which has helped the council's finances, is a good achievement in these circumstances where disposal of assets is very difficult. And clearly we'll roll that forward into next year to have another go at that and ensure that we can deliver even more. So overall, Leader, colleagues, we've, I think, delivered a really good outcome last year, something I think we can be proud of, given that we've addressed and understood the area that we need to put our attention to. We've invested wisely in it based on good analysis, and we've invested in the key areas that are priorities for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Thank you, colleagues. We have two recommendations: that we note and challenge performance and advise of any further information and or action required, and we note the final financial outturn and approve the planned contribution to reserves. All those in favour? Agreed. For the record, that is unanimous. The next item on the agenda is the Framework Agreement for Maintenance and Minor Works, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters, Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I see I'm batting at number 11 today. However, sadly, I think Nathan Lyons and Pat Cummins proved yesterday the value of the lower order. And this, didn't they? Yeah. This is a really, really important report. We have, as I mentioned earlier, a massive property portfolio. And as we continue to innovate and develop our services, we need to properly manage our property assets and manage them effectively. This framework agreement will allow us to procure works and services for very important planned maintenance, reactive maintenance and minor works. And it also covers essential works such as electricals, building work and mechanical repairs. So colleagues, today I'm seeking to renew this framework agreement. It's been live since May 2020 and this framework is due to expire on the 30th of April 2024. Three main areas of work covered by this agreement are general maintenance works, construction projects, including extensions, alterations and new build projects, mechanical heating works, including gas installations, heating and hot water and air conditioning systems, and electrical works, which include rewiring, lighting and ventilation systems, so all massively important. The spend currently, Chairman, is around £10 million per annum. So we're also talking big money that we've got to look after here. This framework ensures that the important legal and procurement conditions are observed and followed. It provides a real benchmark on value. As I say, it's a high level of spend, so it's essential that we maintain and continue to offer best value for the Staffordshire taxpayer. And crucially, the framework provides great opportunities for local businesses to take part in the works that are allocated. So it also, Mr. White will be pleased to note, helps the local economy. We want local contractors to take part in this framework. And also, Chairman, essentially, we emphasise the need to recycle and reuse waste products wherever possible. And we work closely with the climate change team to ensure and we choose the best working options and practices for our carbon reduction programme. So a really important report, Chairman. I think it's timely that we renew the framework now, and I welcome any questions that colleagues may have before reading the recommendations.
Unless anybody wants to bowl Councillor de Villa googly. See what I did there? Maintaining the theme. Straight to the recommendations, please, Councillor de Villa.
Thank you, Mr. White. So I have three recommendations, Chairman, that we approve and agree to officers undertaking a procurement exercise in compliance with the requirements of the Public Contract Regulations 2015 for the framework agreement for maintenance and minor works. That's the framework agreement. Secondly, that we approve that following the procurement process, the successful suppliers be appointed to the framework agreement for the period 1st of May 24 to the 30th of April 2028. Agreement to the final contractual agreements being delegated to the Assistant Director for Commercial and Assets. And finally, Chairman, that we note that any instructions in terms of the framework agreement, subsequent call-offs will be approved in accordance with the Council's procurement regulations. Three recommendations, Chairman.
All those in favour? Agreed. That is unanimous. Next item on the agenda is decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. First one being Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters in agreeing to work in partnership with Stoke-on-Trent City Council to procure a suitable operator when the current Hanford Energy from Waste contract ends on the 31st of March 2025. A short sentence which belies a great deal of lengthy work which has required a tremendous amount of effort from Mr. Ayres. Well done you. I think you were only about 24 when this started, but you've managed to nail it, so well done you. Councillor Deville, was there anything you wanted to add on that matter before I move on to the next one?
I think you summarised it very well, Chairman. It's a long, protracted exercise, this has. Thanks to Mr. Ayres and his team for allowing us to be in the position where we are now.
The next is from the Cabinet Member for Health and Care and approving proposals relating to Cannock Specialist Day opportunities. And then the other one is the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change in agreeing the Council's appointment by the Secretary of State as responsible authority to work with supporting authorities and stakeholders to develop a local nature recovery strategy for Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent as required under the Environment Act 2021. Again, a sentence that belies a tremendous amount of work, and I'd just like to bring in Councillor Tagg just to say a couple of words on that.
Thank you, Lydia. Slightly different from the first one. This is work to come, I think, with the government clarification that the County Council will be the responsible authority for both Staffordshire and Stoke. This will be a big piece of work which the County Council will be working on over the next 18 months or so. We have got money from central government to enable us to do that, and also be working closely with our district partners, the city, and also partners such as the Wildlife Trust to bring this around, and also our communities and our rural communities and our farmers as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is the forward plan of key decisions. These are in July 2023 in public. Living My Best Life, a strategy for disabled and neurodivergent people in Staffordshire 23 to 28, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People and Cabinet Member for Education. Then Treasury Management Outturn Report 22-23, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. Integrated Performance Report Quarter 1 23-24, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources and myself. Staffordshire Bus Strategy, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport. Deprivation of Liberty Safeguards Contract Award, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. Supported Living Future Commissioning Arrangements Update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. Children and Young People's Programme Framework, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Young Children and Young People. A lot going on in the July meeting because there's an endeavour to try and have a stand down in the August, which means you have to compress everything into July. So strap in for the July meeting, ladies and gentlemen. Moving forward to September in public, this strategy for special provision brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. October Integrated Performance Report Quarter 2, 23-24. And then moving forward to November in public, Staffordshire Employment and Skills Strategy 23 to 30, brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills. And that is the forward plan. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the items for Cabinet. But before we finish and people close their laptops, this is John Henderson's final formally constituted public meeting as Chief Executive of Staffordshire County Council. I guess by now, John Henderson knows what it feels like to be a member of a band that's on its final tour. You keep going to venues and people go, thank you ever so much for everything you've done. You've been brilliant. We expect to see the comeback tour when you've run out of cash. Now, we have had a number of fond farewells, John, but this one really is, other than your leaving do, this one really is it. This is the final publicly constituted meeting. And I suppose it's appropriate that this is that meeting because Cabinet members in particular work very, very closely indeed with you. And I have in particular as leader for the past 3 years. And I found your support and guidance tremendously helpful. I think it's fair to say that over those 3 years that I've been leader and you've been the chief executive, we've struck up a friendship as well as a working relationship. And I valued your input, guidance and help on a number of occasions, particularly when I go slightly wobbly, when things are getting to me and I start ranting. John is the person that absorbs all this and says things like, well, perhaps if we just take a look at it in a different way, we'll come to a slightly different conclusion. I think everybody I've spoken to in the organisation, John, the thousands of people we employ now and over the years have all valued your leadership and guidance and the role model that you've created for the employees of Staffordshire County Council and indeed the role model that you have been for the 880,000 people who live in this county. You will be missed, John. That is without doubt. I will certainly miss your guidance and I hope that we were able to stay in touch once you've departed. I know you're going to continue living in Staffordshire, having gone to all the great lengths that you've gone to knock down that old house and rebuild this current one. I suspect that Shona would be deeply disappointed in you suggesting that you move. I suspect you'd end up wearing that great big emblem that you got outside your garage if you suggested such a thing. So, John, I'm going to invite you to say a few words. This is your final formal meeting, just by way of a final contribution.
Leader, members of the Cabinet, thank you very much. And it is a unique privilege for an officer to be able to address Cabinet on this occasion. So I recognise the privilege I'm being given. So thank you. But I just want to say one thing, and that is thank you, members of Cabinet, for your support with the officers. I think in Staffordshire we have a really special relationship between the officers and the members. It goes beyond respectful. It goes into supportive and encouraging. And whether it's small things like the framework for minor works, which is a £10 million contract. It's people talk about doing boring well. I think there's that, but we also do the exciting, because doing that, getting the basics right, allows us to work for the residents of Staffordshire. And so, final thought, thank you for all your support. It has been a huge privilege to work for you and through you for the residents of Staffordshire.
And with that, John, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our meeting.